I'll never forget the day my HOA president neighbor decided to gift my family's private lake to her fiancé at her engagement party. What started as an innocent evening by the water turned into a public spectacle that would eventually land Patricia in the middle of a $3 million lawsuit. It was a warm Saturday evening in June, and I was sitting on my grandfather's old wooden bench by the lake, watching the koi swim in lazy circles. The sound of clinking glasses and laughter from next door grew louder. Patricia was throwing an engagement party. From the noise, it seemed like half the neighborhood had shown up to celebrate her upcoming marriage to Derek, a real estate developer who always looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. That lake had been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built the ranch with his own hands back in the 1970s. Every morning, I'd feed the koi. Some of them were even descendants of the original fish he brought from Japan. The water was crystal clear, fed by a natural spring, and surrounded by willow trees that provided perfect shade during hot summer days. It wasn't just a body of water. It was a living piece of family history, where my grandfather taught me to fish, where my father proposed to my mother, where countless family gatherings had taken place over the decades. As a landscape architect, I understood the value of preserving natural beauty, and this lake was the crown jewel of our property. The party noise suddenly died down to a hush, and I heard the unmistakable sound of Patricia's voice amplified through a microphone. Curiosity got the better of me, so I walked closer to the fence line to hear what she was announcing. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate our love," she began, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness she reserved for public appearances. "As you know, in our wonderful HOA community, we believe in sharing and caring for each other. We're not just neighbors, we're family." The crowd murmured approval, and I rolled my eyes at the performance. Patricia had mastered the art of playing the benevolent leader while simultaneously issuing violation notices for grass that was half an inch too tall. But what came next made my blood run cold. "And speaking of sharing," she continued, "I want to give Derek the most special engagement gift imaginable." She paused for dramatic effect, and I heard papers rustling. If you look at this original HOA map from 1985, you'll see it clearly states community lake access. My heart started pounding as I realized where this was heading. That map she was referencing showed the public boat ramp on the other side of the development, not my private lake. But Patricia either didn't know the difference or was deliberately misrepresenting the facts. "So tonight," she announced triumphantly, "in front of all our dear friends and neighbors, I'm officially gifting this beautiful lake to my future husband, Derek." The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. I heard cameras clicking and saw phone flashes going off through the gaps in the fence. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a calculated public declaration designed to create the illusion of legitimacy. I didn't waste another second. I walked around to her gate and pushed through the crowd of party guests, my grandfather's property deed clutched in my hand. "Excuse me," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "That's my lake, on my property, and you have no right to gift something you don't own." The crowd fell silent, all eyes turning between Patricia and me like spectators at a tennis match. Patricia's smile never wavered, but I saw the glint of satisfaction in her eyes. She had been expecting this. "Oh, Marcus," she said into the microphone, her voice taking on a concerned tone. "I think you're confused. This is a community asset, and as HOA president, I have every right to allocate community resources." I held up the deed. "This legal document says otherwise. This lake has been private property for 50 years, and you know it." Derek stood beside her, looking uncomfortable and checking his phone repeatedly while Patricia's expression hardened. "Security," she called out sharply. "We have someone disrupting our celebration. Please remove this party crasher." 2 burly men in black shirts materialized from the crowd and moved toward me. "This is ridiculous," I protested. "You can't just claim someone else's property because you want to." But my words were drowned out by Patricia's voice in the microphone. "I'm so sorry, everyone. Some people just can't stand to see others happy." The security guards grabbed my arms and started pushing me toward the gate. I struggled to maintain my footing, trying to explain to the guests that this was all a misunderstanding, that Patricia was lying, but the music had already started again, and most people had turned their attention back to the party. As I was being forcibly escorted out, I stumbled over a garden hose and went down hard on the grass, the deed flying from my hand. Someone gasped, cameras flashed, and I heard the distinct sound of video recording starting. "He's attacking us," Patricia shouted, even though I was clearly the one on the ground. "Someone call the police." The security guards hauled me to my feet and shoved me through the gate, slamming it behind me. Through the fence, I could hear Patricia addressing her guests again. "I'm so sorry you had to witness that. Some neighbors just can't handle change. But don't worry, Derek's Lake will be the most beautiful addition to our community." The crowd cheered again, and I stood there, grass stains on my clothes, fury burning in my chest, listening to them celebrate the theft of my family's legacy. Within 3 hours, the video was everywhere. Jealous Neighbor Ruins engagement party had already hit 500,000 views, with comments pouring and calling me entitled, selfish, and worse. The video had been edited, of course, starting right when I was already arguing, making it look like I had burst in unprovoked to cause trouble. But something interesting was happening in the comments section. Between all the negative reactions, a few observant viewers were asking the important questions. "Wait, did she say she's gifting someone else's lake?" One commenter wrote, "How can you gift something you don't own?" Another added, "Anyone else notice how the security was already in position? This seems staged." I sat at my computer screenshotting these comments before they could be deleted, building my evidence file. Patricia might have won this round in the court of public opinion, but I knew the real battle was just beginning. As I closed my laptop, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this slide. Patricia had publicly humiliated me, tried to steal my property, and turned me into a viral villain. But she had also made a crucial mistake. She had done it all on camera, in front of 50 witnesses, with her own words condemning her. Tomorrow, I would call Gerald, my grandfather's old friend and the best property lawyer in the state. Patricia wanted to play games with property law? Fine. But she was about to learn that some games have very expensive consequences. I couldn't believe my eyes when I looked out the window the next afternoon and saw workers unloading what appeared to be billboard components right on Patricia's property. She stood there directing everything like a general commanding her troops, all while live-streaming the spectacle to her followers. "Hi everyone, Patricia here with an exciting update on the Derek's Lake Resort project," she chirped into her phone, smiling like she hadn't just spent the last 24 hours trying to steal my land. "As you can see, we're making it official with proper signage." The camera panned to show a massive 20-foot billboard being erected, boldly declaring Future Site, Derek's Lake Resort and Spa, complete with a detailed artist's rendering of my lake now surrounded by commercial development. The sign was technically on her property, but the arrow pointed straight at my shoreline. And the image? It was unmistakably my family's lakefront. Derek stood off to the side during all this, and something about his behavior caught my attention. While Patricia performed for the camera, he kept checking his phone with increasing anxiety, occasionally wiping sweat from his forehead despite the mild weather. When Patricia called him over to pose by the new sign, he forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes, then immediately returned to his phone. Something was clearly bothering him, and it wasn't just the questionable legality of Patricia's plan. As the workers finished installing the sign, Patricia told her viewers, "Some people might try to stand in the way of progress, but love conquers all. Derek and I are building a future together, and no bitter neighbor can stop that." The live stream had already gathered thousands of viewers, and comments were pouring in. Some supported her vision of community development, while others questioned the legality of claiming someone else's property. But Patricia didn't seem to care about legality. She cared about perception. And at that moment, she was winning the PR war. I picked up my phone and sent a quick message to Gerald. "Need to meet ASAP. Neighbor is escalating. She's got cops involved and is now advertising commercial development of my property." His reply came fast. "Can you come to my office in an hour? And Marcus, start documenting everything. Every interaction, every false claim, every witness. We're going to need it all." As I gathered my documents, I noticed something odd in the HOA paperwork Patricia had shown the police the night before. The election records from 3 years ago, when she became president, showed unusually high turnout and unanimous support from addresses I knew had been vacant at the time. I texted Gerald again. I think we need to look deeper into how Patricia became HOA president. Something's not right with these election records. His response made me smile for the first time all day, already on it. Did some digging after your call last night. You're not going to believe what I found. Looking out at the massive billboard announcing the theft of my property, I realized this wasn't just about a lake anymore. This was about corruption, fraud, and a woman who thought her position gave her the power to take whatever she wanted. Part 2 continued. Gerald's law office hadn't changed much since my grandfather first brought me there as a kid. The same leather-bound books lined the walls, and there was still that faint smell of pipe tobacco permanently embedded in the furniture. But the document he slid across his mahogany desk was definitely new, and definitely explosive. Marcus, your instinct about the election records was dead on, he said, adjusting his reading glasses. I had my investigator pull the original HOA election documents from 3 years ago. Look at these signatures. He spread several pages in front of me, pointing to name after name. These 30 addresses were all vacant properties at the time of the election, bank foreclosures, houses in probate, even a lot that never had a house built on it. Yet somehow, they all voted for Patricia. I studied the signatures, noticing they all had suspiciously similar handwriting, despite supposedly coming from different voters. She forged them, I said, the pieces falling into place. She stole the election to become HOA president. Gerald nodded grimly. That's not all. Remember that community lake access clause she keeps citing? I pulled the original HOA charter from 1985. That clause specifically refers to the public boat ramp at the Elm Street entrance, nearly a quarter-mile from your property. She's deliberately misrepresenting the documents. I leaned forward. Can we prove all this in court? Gerald's smile was the kind that probably terrified opposing counsel.
We can do better than that.
Forging signatures on official HOA documents is fraud. Misrepresenting property boundaries for personal gain is attempted theft. And doing it all publicly while serving in an elected position? That's corruption of office. He pulled out another folder. We're not just going to stop her, Marcus. We're going to expose her completely. He handed me 3 documents, an emergency restraining order preventing her or her fiancé from coming within 500 feet of my property, a cease and desist letter regarding the billboard and any marketing materials referencing my lake, and a formal complaint to the HOA board demanding an investigation into election fraud. I signed where he indicated, feeling like I was finally fighting back instead of just defending. When will these be served? I asked. Gerald's grin widened. That's the beautiful part. My investigator tells me Patricia is hosting a live stream meeting with potential investors for her resort this afternoon. 3 hours later, I was back home watching Patricia's live stream on my laptop. She had set up in her home office with a professional backdrop showing the resort plans. Welcome, everyone, to this exclusive investor presentation for Derek's Lake Resort and Spa, she gushed at the camera. We already have 5 premium investors from Dubai very interested in our waterfront development opportunity. She clicked through slides showing architectural renderings of my family's lake transformed into a commercial playground, jet ski rentals, a floating restaurant, even a wedding venue on the shore where my grandfather's bench sat. The location is absolutely perfect, she continued, with existing mature landscaping and pristine water quality maintained for generations. The irony of her using my family's careful stewardship as a selling point wasn't lost on me. Derek sat beside her, but I noticed he kept glancing off-camera nervously. Just as Patricia was drawing a diagram of the planned marina, showing how they would dredge my lake to accommodate larger boats, there was a knock at her door. "One moment, everyone," she said to the camera, her smile faltering slightly. "Derek, could you?" But Derek seemed frozen in place. The knocking came again, more insistent. Patricia maintained her composure as she went to answer it, but she made the mistake of leaving the live stream running. The entire audience, including me, watched as Sheriff Davidson appeared in the doorway, holding a stack of legal documents. "Patricia Morrison," he said in his official voice, "I have court documents that need to be served to you personally." The chat exploded with comments as Patricia's face went white. "This is highly inappropriate," she hissed, trying to block the camera's view. "I'm in the middle of a business meeting." Sheriff Davidson was unmoved. "Ma'am, you're being served with an emergency restraining order requiring you to stay 500 feet away from the property belonging to Marcus Thompson. You're also being served with a cease and desist order regarding false advertising of said property and notice of a formal complaint filed with the HOA board regarding election fraud." The investor chat was going wild. "Is this a scam?" one typed. "Fraud," wrote another. "Pulling out immediately," declared someone with a Dubai flag emoji. Patricia tried to salvage the situation, plastering on her fake smile as she returned to the camera. "I'm so sorry for that interruption, everyone. Just a minor misunderstanding that our legal team will clear up quickly." But the damage was done. The investors were dropping out of the call one by one, and someone in the chat had already screen-capped Sheriff Davidson serving the papers. Within minutes, clips were being shared across social media with captions like, HOA president busted during investor call, and Lake Resort scam exposed live. Derek finally spoke, his voice shaky. "Patricia, maybe we should postpone this meeting." She turned on him with a look that could have curdled milk. "We're not postponing anything. This is just a temporary setback." But Derek was already closing his laptop, and I noticed him quickly gathering papers from the desk. Papers Patricia tried to grab from him. "What are you doing?" she snapped. "Those are confidential." Derek pulled them away from her reach. "I need to review everything with my own lawyer," he said. "This is getting too complicated." After the live stream ended in disaster, I thought Patricia might finally back down. But I had underestimated her determination and overestimated her wisdom. That evening, as I sat by the lake enjoying the peace, my phone buzzed with a text from a neighbor. "Check Patricia's social media. She's not giving up." Sure enough, Patricia had posted a defiant message. "Some people think they can use intimidation tactics to stop progress, but I've been fighting for this community for 3 years, and I won't be silenced by frivolous lawsuits. Derek's Lake will happen one way or another. Stay tuned for a major announcement tomorrow." The comments were split between supporters who believed her victim narrative and skeptics who had seen the serving video. But one comment caught my eye from someone who claimed to be a former HOA board member. "Patricia always talked about that lake. She said her ex-husband's family tried to buy it decades ago and failed. This seems personal." I screenshotted everything, adding it to my growing evidence file. Gerald called me that evening with an update. The HOA board has agreed to an emergency meeting to review the election fraud allegations. Also, Patricia's lawyer contacted me. They want to negotiate. I laughed bitterly. Negotiate? She announced she's stealing my property to an audience of thousands. What's there to negotiate? Gerald's voice was serious. "Marcus, I've seen people like Patricia before. When cornered, they get desperate. And desperate people do dangerous things. Make sure your security cameras are working and recording everything. And whatever you do, don't let her provoke you into doing something that could hurt our case." As I hung up, I noticed lights on at Patricia's house despite the late hour. Through the window, I could see her on the phone, pacing and gesturing wildly. At one point, she threw something looked like a picture frame against the wall. Derek was nowhere to be seen. Around midnight, just as I was heading to bed, I heard a vehicle pull up to her house. Peeking through my blinds, I saw her loading equipment into a truck, tarps, tools, and what looked like sandbags. She was on her phone again, and I caught a few words carried on the night breeze. "Tonight. Bring everything." No, he won't know until morning. A chill ran down my spine as I realized what she might be planning. I immediately checked my security cameras, making sure they were all recording, and sent Gerald a text. "I think Patricia is about to do something really stupid. Cameras are rolling. Public service of legal documents is completely legal, and in this case, rather poetic." Patricia had gone too far. I didn't know it yet, but that night would mark the turning point in this entire nightmare, the moment where her obsession with my lake turned from theft to destruction. I got a message from Gerald late that evening after watching her truck disappear down the road. "Don't confront her. Let her hang herself. Document everything. That's exactly what I did. The next morning, I went out to feed the koi like I always did. It was a ritual passed down from my grandfather, one that connected me not just to my family, but to generations of care and stewardship. But when I reached the lake, my heart dropped. It was barely recognizable. The water level had dropped by at least 60%. My grandmother's lotus plants were stranded on cracked mud, and dozens of koi were flopping desperately in shallow puddles. Some were already lifeless. I dropped to my knees, trying to scoop up the smaller fish and move them to deeper water, but it was like trying to empty the ocean with a teacup. My hands shook as I took it all in, the devastation, the loss, the cruelty of it. These weren't just fish. They were living memories. Some of them were over 50 years old, descendants of the original koi my grandfather brought back from Japan. One of them, named Sunshine, was massive, white and gold, with a personality as bright as her colors. She lay still in the mud, her body too big to save. She couldn't even breathe. My security cameras had captured it all. At 2 a.m., Derek's truck pulled up near the public utility easement where the creek fed into the lake. For 2 hours, he worked under cover of darkness, using sandbags and wooden planks to dam the flow of water, diverting it away from my property entirely. He looked nervous the whole time. Stopped multiple times like he was having second thoughts. But every time he hesitated, he got a call from Patricia, and right after each one, he returned to his grim task. This wasn't just property damage. It was environmental vandalism. Birds circled overhead, confused and searching for prey that was suddenly gone. The beavers who lived along the north shore had abandoned their lodge. Frogs and turtles struggled in the remaining puddles. The ecosystem we'd nurtured for 3 generations was collapsing before my eyes. I recorded everything with shaking hands, footage that would later go viral. I uploaded it with hashtags like #SaveMarcusKoi and #EnvironmentalCrime, and within an hour, it had over 50,000 views. People were horrified. Comments poured in from fish enthusiasts, environmentalists, and regular folks who couldn't believe someone could do something so cruel. Those koi were living artwork, one person wrote. Another said, "Whoever did this should be in federal prison." Local news picked up the story by noon. My phone started ringing nonstop with interview requests. But the most important call came from Gerald. "Marcus," he said, voice steady, "I've just filed a $3 million lawsuit against Patricia and Derek. Property damage, environmental destruction, emotional distress, and punitive damages. But that's not all. I've contacted the EPA. Deliberately damming a waterway affects federal jurisdiction. This isn't just civil anymore, it's criminal." The lawsuit was comprehensive. Gerald had calculated not only the value of the dead fish, some were thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars, but also the cost of restoring the entire ecosystem, the irreplaceable genetic lines lost, and the emotional toll of watching our family heritage destroyed overnight. And if that wasn't enough, Patricia tried to spin it. She posted a video claiming she had discovered the damage and suggested I had done it myself, for insurance money. "It's suspicious," she said to the camera, that right after being served legal papers, Marcus would destroy his own property to gain sympathy and money. But she made a huge mistake. Viewers quickly noticed she was wearing the same clothes from the previous night's dam building operation, just layered under a different jacket. Comment sections became detective forums, comparing timestamps and screenshots proving her timeline didn't add up. The hashtag Patricia the Liar started trending locally. Even worse for her, traffic camera footage surfaced showing Derek's truck on the exact route to the utility easement, at the exact time my security footage showed him there. The digital trail was undeniable. By midday, the State Fish and Wildlife Department arrived to assess the damage. Their preliminary report was devastating. "This is one of the worst cases of deliberate ecosystem destruction we've seen," the lead inspector told me. He explained that those koi weren't just pets, they were a managed population with genetic diversity built over decades. Some bloodlines were now extinct. Water samples were taken, photos cataloged, and evidence gathered that would support federal charges. Meanwhile, my video continued to spread. Environmental lawyers offered pro bono help. Koi breeding associations reached out, offering to assist in rebuilding the population. But nothing could bring back Sunshine or the others. As Patricia's framed job unraveled online, I noticed Derek hadn't appeared in any of her content.
His truck was gone from their driveway.
When a reporter knocked on their door, Patricia answered alone, claiming Derek was traveling for business. Gerald called again that evening with more updates. The EPA is fast-tracking this case. Turns out your lake connects to protected wetlands downstream. By damming the flow, they've affected a federal wildlife preserve. Patricia and Derek are looking at fines up to $250,000 per day until the waterway is restored, plus potential criminal charges. He paused, then added, I've also heard from 3 HOA board members. They're horrified by Patricia's actions and are calling an emergency meeting to discuss her immediate removal as president. As night fell, I stood by what remained of my lake, watching volunteers arrive, people who had seen the video and wanted to help. A marine biologist from the local university brought irrigation equipment to keep the remaining water oxygenated. Others helped carry buckets and set up temporary tanks. It was heartbreaking, but it was also healing. And somewhere behind me, Patricia's empire of lies was beginning to crumble, one post, one document, and one witness at a time.